of your immediate world. They create a boundary between in here and out there. But do they really? Listen for a moment. Can you hear anything beyond these walls? Perhaps the distant hum of traffic, the whisper of wind, the settling of a house, the muffled sound of life continuing in other rooms, other buildings, other worlds adjacent to yours. Sound passes through your walls as though they weren't there at all. And light, even in darkness, light finds its way. It seeps beneath doors. It glows faintly through windows. It presses against every barrier we build, patient and inevitable, until it finds passage. Your walls are not really edges. They are more like suggestions, gentle requests for privacy that the universe largely ignores. Think about your skin. This seems like a clearer boundary, doesn't it? The definite edge where you end and the world begins. You've lived your entire life within this border. Everything inside is you. Everything outside is not you, but your skin breathes. It releases moisture into the air. It absorbs molecules from everything you touch. It sheds thousands of cells every hour, sending pieces of yourself out into the world. And it takes in, constantly, the world around you. Temperature, pressure, sensation. Your skin is not a wall. It's a conversation. A constant exchange between what you call yourself and what you call everything else. Where, exactly, do you end? The air in your lungs right now was outside you a moment ago. In a moment, you'll breathe it back out, and it will be outside again. The water in your cells has been in oceans, in clouds, in other people. The atoms that make up your body are older than the sun. They've been in stars. They've drifted through the void. They've been in soil and stone and countless living things. You are made of the world. The boundary between you and everything else is just a temporary arrangement, a brief pattern that will eventually dissolve, like all patterns do. This is true of every boundary you've ever known, the edge of your property. What is that, really? An invisible line drawn on a map, agreed upon by strangers, marked by nothing the earth itself would recognize. You can stand with one foot on either side of this boundary and feel no difference. The grass doesn't change, the soil doesn't know. The border of your city, as you drive or walk across it, there's no wall, no sudden shift. Just a sign that says you've left one name and entered another. But the roads continue. The sky is the same sky. The border is an idea, not a thing. Even your country's edge, guarded and monitored and treated as sacred by those who live on either side, is just an agreement. A decision about where one group's story ends and another begins. The rivers that mark some of these borders flow across them without noticing. Birds fly over them. Weather systems ignore them completely. The earth beneath them predates them by billions of years and will remain long after the agreements that created them have been forgotten. Every boundary you've ever respected, every edge you've ever acknowledged is permeable, provisional, more like a gradual transition than a hard stop. One thing becomes another, always, everywhere. The shore is not where the land ends and the sea begins. It's where they meet, mix, argue, and exchange. Waves bring the ocean onto the sand. Rivers carry the land into the water. The boundary moves with every tide, every season, every breath of wind. The atmosphere doesn't end at some sharp line in space. It fades, gradually, imperceptibly, thinning and thinning until there are so few molecules that we agree to call it space, even though technically, atoms from Earth's atmosphere extend far beyond any line we've drawn. Where does the atmosphere end? Where does space begin? The answer depends on who you ask and why they're asking. The boundary is a choice, a convenience, not a truth. This matters, because tonight, we're going to ask a question that seems to demand a boundary, a clear edge, a definite answer. What exists outside the universe? It's a natural question. Our minds are trained to think in terms of containers and edges. Rooms have walls, countries have borders, stories have endings. So surely, the universe, the biggest container of all, must have some kind of edge. And beyond that edge, something else, something outside. But what if the question itself is built on the same illusion as all those other boundaries? What if outside is just another word we use to make sense of transitions we don't fully understand? You don't need to answer this yet. You don't need to solve anything. Tonight is not about answers. Tonight is about the beauty of the question itself, the gift of wondering, the strange comfort that comes from letting your mind reach towards something it cannot hold. Because here's what happens. When you ask a question like this, your small worries become smaller. The argument you had earlier today, the email you forgot to send, the appointment you're dreading, the money you're worried about, the relationship that feels stuck, all of these are real. They matter, they're part of your life, and they deserve your attention. But not right now. Right now, you're thinking about the edge of everything. You're trying to picture what could possibly be beyond all that is. And in this moment, your personal concerns are exactly what they've always been, small ripples on an infinite ocean. Not unimportant, just small, beautifully, manageably small. You contain universes of worry. Your mind can generate endless scenarios, each one feeling urgent and vast. But even your largest anxiety is still within you, still contained in the 3 pounds of matter in your skull, still subject to the same laws as everything else, still temporary, still just a pattern of electricity and chemistry that will shift and change and eventually dissolve. Your worries are weather. They pass through, and tonight, we're going to give you something else to think about instead. Something that doesn't demand solutions. Something that invites you to drift rather than struggle. Something vast enough to make you feel small in the best possible way. We're going to take a journey to the edge of the universe, and then we're going to ask what might be beyond it. We'll explore ideas so strange they'll make your daily concerns feel simple by comparison. We'll sit with questions that have no answers. We'll find peace in mystery. But we begin here, with you, with walls that aren't really walls, with boundaries that dissolve under examination. Because if you can understand that every edge you've ever known is really just a place where one thing gradually becomes another, then perhaps you can approach the universe's edge with the same gentle curiosity. Perhaps there is no edge. Perhaps there is. Perhaps the question itself doesn't quite make sense. Perhaps it makes perfect sense in a way we can't yet understand. All of these possibilities are beautiful. All of them are worth contemplating. None of them require you to solve anything tonight. You're safe here, in this room with its permeable walls. You're safe in this body with its breathing skin. You're safe in this moment, which is already dissolving into the next, the way all moments do. And the universe, vast and strange and full of secrets, continues around you. It has no obligation to make sense, no duty to provide you with comprehensible edges. It simply is, endlessly becoming, boundlessly present, just like you, just like this moment, just like the question we're about to explore together. As you drift deeper into rest, into wonder, into the soft darkness where all boundaries fade, there are questions you ask because you need answers. What time is the appointment? Where did I put my keys? Is there milk in the refrigerator? These questions have definite answers. They exist somewhere, waiting to be discovered. You simply don't know them yet. Then there are questions you ask because you want answers. What's in that building across the street? What does my neighbor do for a living? What's written in that book I haven't read? These answers exist too. You could find them if you tried. They're hidden only by circumstance, by distance, by the limits of your current knowledge. But some questions are different. Some questions might not have answers at all. What existed before time began? What's north of the North Pole? What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? What's outside the universe? These questions feel different in your mind, don't they? They create a strange sensation, not frustration. Exactly. Something more like vertigo, a pleasant dizziness. Your thoughts reach toward them and find nothing to grasp. They slip away, they shimmer, they refuse to resolve. This is not a flaw in the questions, this is their gift. For most of your life, you've been trained to solve things, to find answers, to resolve uncertainties. From your earliest education, you learned that questions exist to be answered. Every test you took had a key. Every problem had a solution. The universe was presented to you as fundamentally knowable, difficult, perhaps, complex, certainly, but ultimately comprehensible. And then you encounter a question like this. What's outside the universe? Your mind begins to work on it automatically. That's what minds do. They grasp, they analyze, they try to build models and frameworks. You might picture the universe as a sphere and then imagine stepping outside it. But wait, if you can step outside it, then that space you're stepping into is part of a larger reality, which means you haven't actually left the universe at all. So maybe the universe is infinite, no edges, no outside, just endlessness in all directions. That seems to solve it. But then your mind asks, how can something be infinite? How can there be no end? Your imagination tries to picture endlessness and finds it cannot. Infinity is not a very large number. It's not a number at all. It's the absence of limit. An absence is hard to hold, so maybe the universe curves back on itself. Maybe if you travel far enough in one direction, you return to where you started, like walking around a sphere. But then what is the universe curving through? What medium allows for this curvature? And your mind is back where it started, reaching for something it cannot grasp. This is the moment most people feel frustrated, the moment when the question reveals itself as unsolvable. But what if this is exactly the moment to relax? What if the point is not to solve it? What if the point is to feel it? To experience the strange, delicious sensation of your mind encountering its own limits. Children understand this instinctively. A child asks why, and you give an answer. They ask why, again, and again, and again. Eventually, you reach a place where you have to say, that's just how it is or nobody knows. And the child is satisfied. Not because they've learned the final answer, but because they've reached the edge of what can be known. They've touched mystery, and mystery is beautiful. Somewhere in growing up, we forget this. We learn to feel uncomfortable with not knowing. We learn to hide our ignorance, to be embarrassed by unanswered questions, to treat mystery as a problem rather than a wonder. Tonight, we're remembering what we knew as children. We're giving ourselves permission to not know, permission to wonder without needing to solve, permission to rest in questions that have no answers. Medieval philosophers spent years contemplating paradoxes, not because they were confused, not because they thought paradoxes were real problems that needed solving, but because paradoxes are beautiful. They're places where language and logic reach their edges. They're windows into something beyond the reach of ordinary thought. Can God create a stone so heavy that he cannot lift it? If he can, then there's something he cannot do, lift the stone. If he cannot, then there's something he cannot do, create the stone. Either way, there's a limit. But God, by definition, is limitless. This is not a disproof of God. This is a demonstration that some concepts exceed the capacity of language to contain them. The question creates a delicious vertigo, a pleasant confusion. It shows you the edge of what words can do, what existed before time began. The question seems to make sense, but before is a word that assumes time already exists. Before is a temporal concept, You cannot have a before without time. So the question contains its own contradiction. It's asking about a temporal relationship in a context where time doesn't exist yet. And yet, the question still means something, doesn't it? You can feel what it's reaching toward, even if language cannot quite get there. What's north of the North Pole? On a sphere, north is a direction that leads toward the North Pole. When you're standing at the North Pole, every direction is south. There is no north of north. The question dissolves. But in dissolving, it teaches you something about the nature of direction itself, about how our concepts are built for local use and sometimes fail when pushed to extremes. These impossible questions are not wastes of time. They are invitations. They invite you to feel the limits of your conceptual framework, to experience the strangeness of existence, to remember that reality is under no obligation to make sense to you. The universe does not owe you comprehensibility. This is a deeply comforting thought once you sit with it. You are not failing when you cannot understand everything. You are not broken when certain questions leave you confused. The universe is not a puzzle designed for you to solve. It is not a test you need to pass. It simply is. Vast and strange and full of secrets. Some of those secrets might be knowable, others might not. Either way, they're not your responsibility. You can let go of the need to figure it all out. You can ask what's outside the universe and let the question hang there, unanswered. You can feel it shimmer in your mind. You can notice how it makes you feel small and large at the same time. Small because you cannot answer it. Large because you can ask it at all. Only certain kinds of minds can formulate questions like this. Only beings with language and abstraction and curiosity. Only creatures who can imagine beyond what they can see. You are one of those creatures. The question itself is evidence of something remarkable in you. But the answer can wait. The answer can remain forever out of reach. And that's okay. Tonight is not about knowing. Tonight is about wondering. About letting wonder be enough. About finding rest in mystery rather than exhaustion in striving. We're going to explore many ideas tonight. We'll consider different possibilities. We'll think about the shape of space and the nature of boundaries and the mathematics of infinity. We'll venture into strange territories of thought, but none of it will give you a final answer. None of it will resolve the question completely. And by the end, you'll find that comforting. You'll find that relief lives not in answers, but in the gentle release of needing them. For now, just notice how it feels to hold an unanswerable question. Notice the sensation in your mind. Is it uncomfortable? Is it peaceful? Is it both at once? Your thoughts are slowing. The desperate grasping is fading. You're beginning to drift, and the question drifts with you, not as a problem to solve, but as a companion, a presence, a gentle reminder that you are part of something far too vast to understand. And that vastness is exactly where we're going next. To the edge of everything you can know, to the horizon where light itself runs out of time, to the oldest glow in existence, still washing over you right now, carrying with it the story of how everything began. But you don't need to prepare for that journey. You don't need to gather anything. You don't need to understand what's coming. You only need to let go, to float, to trust that the question will carry you, and it will. The universe has a shape, not the whole universe, perhaps, not the entire infinite everything that might exist beyond what we can see, but the part you can know, the part that can touch you with light. That part has a shape. It is a sphere, and you are at the center of it, not because you're special, not because the universe was arranged with you in mind, but because of something simpler, something beautiful, because of the way light moves through space and time. Imagine you're standing in a vast open field at night. You hold a flashlight. When you turn it on, light spreads out from you in all directions. A sphere of light expands outward. You are at the center of that sphere, not because you're cosmically important, but because you're holding the flashlight. Now imagine the opposite. You're standing in that same field, but instead of holding a light, you're receiving light. Light is reaching you from every direction, from the stars above, from the distant horizon, from everywhere light can come from. That light has been traveling. Some of it started its journey recently. The light from the moon left its surface just over a second ago. The light from the sun left 8 minutes ago. The light from the nearest star beyond our sun has been traveling for years. And the farther you look, the longer the light has been traveling, the older it is, the more ancient its journey. There is a limit to how far you can see, not because space ends, not because there's nothing beyond, but because light itself has only had so much time to reach you. The universe began. We'll talk more about that beginning later. But for now, just hold this. There was a moment when light first became free to travel, when the universe became transparent. That was long ago, nearly 14 billion years ago. Light that started traveling then has been moving toward you ever since. It's had all that time to cross space, to make its way through the expanding darkness, to finally arrive at your eyes, or at the instruments we've built to see what our eyes cannot. That light is reaching you right now, stretched, tired, dimmed by distance and time, but still arriving, still bringing information from the deepest past. And light that started traveling from farther away than that. Light that would need more time than the universe has existed to reach you. That light hasn't arrived yet. It's still on its way. Or perhaps it will never arrive, because the universe is expanding and some light will never catch up. This creates a sphere around you, a sphere of visibility, a sphere of what can be known. You are at the center, not you personally, but you, Earth, this location in space. Any observer, anywhere in the universe would see themselves at the center of their own sphere. Each of us lives inside our own bubble of observable reality. Your bubble extends outward in all directions, equally far in every direction, because light travels at the same speed in all directions. The sphere is centered on you because that's where the light is arriving. How far does it extend? Farther than you can imagine, farther than numbers can really convey. But let's try anyway. Light moves fast, faster than anything else in the universe. In the time it takes you to blink, light could travel around the entire Earth 7 times. In 1 year, light travels about 6 trillion miles. We call this distance a light year. Not a measure of time, but of distance. The distance light can travel in a year. The edge of your observable sphere is about 46 billion light years away, in every direction. This number is too large to mean anything to your intuition. Your mind cannot hold it, cannot picture it. 46 billion light years might as well be infinity. But try this instead. Imagine light that has been traveling since before Earth existed, since before the sun ignited, since before our galaxy took its current shape. Light that started its journey when the universe was young and hot and nothing like what it is now. That light is still traveling. It's been moving toward you for almost all of time, and it still hasn't reached you from the farthest edges of your sphere. Some light has been traveling for so long that everything it passed through has changed. Galaxies have formed, lived, and aged. Stars have been born and died. Planets have coalesced from dust and been destroyed by their dying suns. And that light just keeps moving, patient, unstoppable, carrying its ancient message across the growing distances. This is the edge of your sphere, not a wall, not a boundary you could touch, but a horizon, a limit of visibility. Think of standing in fog, dense fog on a quiet morning. You can see a certain distance in every direction. Beyond that distance, the fog is too thick. You cannot see through it. There is a circle around you where visibility ends, but the world doesn't end there. The fog continues. The ground continues. Trees and hills and roads exist beyond where you can see. They simply haven't sent their light to you through the fog. Your observable universe is like this. There is a sphere around you where visibility ends, not because space ends there, not because there's nothing beyond, but because light from beyond that distance hasn't had time to reach you yet. Or perhaps it will never reach you, because space itself is expanding. The fabric of the universe is stretching. Distances are growing, and some light, no matter how fast it travels, will never be able to cross the growing gap. This is strange to contemplate. Light moving as fast as anything can move, and still losing ground, still falling farther behind, because the space it's trying to cross is stretching faster than light can travel through it. So your sphere might not just be a horizon of what you can see now. It might be a horizon of what you will ever be able to see. A permanent edge, not of space, but of information, of knowability. Inside this sphere is everything you can possibly know about, every galaxy you can see, every star that can send you its light, every signal that can reach you from the depths of space. Outside this sphere is everything you cannot know, everything too far away, everything beyond the reach of light and time. This doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It almost certainly does. The universe likely extends far beyond your sphere, perhaps infinitely, perhaps in ways that curve and loop in dimensions you cannot picture. But you cannot see it, you cannot know it, you cannot receive information from it. It is, in every practical sense, outside your universe, beyond your reality, separate, unless you could travel, unless you could move to a different location, where the sphere is centered differently, where different regions are inside the bubble of the observable. But even then, you'd just have a different sphere, a different bubble, still limited, still bounded by light and time. Everywhere in the universe, observers see themselves at the center of a sphere. Each sphere overlaps with others. Each one is unique. Each one is home to a perspective that cannot see everything. This is the shape of everything you've ever known, a sphere of light and matter, centered on you, bounded not by walls but by time itself. You live inside this bubble. You have always lived inside it. You will always live inside it. It is your universe, not the universe, perhaps, but yours. And here is the beautiful part. You are cradled in the center of it, held in the middle of a sphere of knowable reality, surrounded equally in all directions by ancient light and distant matter. You are small within it, impossibly small, a speck on a planet orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy among billions of galaxies. But you are also central, perfectly positioned in the exact middle of everything you can see. The universe, from your perspective, arranges itself around you, not because you matter more than anything else, but because perspective itself creates position, because observation requires a location, because to see is to be at the center of what you see. This is true for everyone, for everything. Every conscious being, everywhere, lives at the center of their own sphere. We are all central, all cradled, all surrounded by ancient light that has traveled unimaginable distances just to reach us. The sphere that surrounds you right now contains more galaxies than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, more stars than you could count if you spent your entire life counting, more space than your mind can measure. And yet, it might be just a tiny bubble in something infinitely larger, a droplet in an endless ocean, a single room in an endless house, or it might curve back on itself, might loop, might connect in ways that mean there is no outside, only different paths through the same finite space. We don't know yet. We might never know. The sphere you can see is all you have, all you will ever have. But it's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. And at its edge, something waits. Not a wall, not an ending, but a horizon made of time itself. The oldest light in existence, the echo of the beginning, the glow that fills all of space with a whisper of where everything came from. That's where we're going next, to the edge of your sphere, to the moment when the universe became transparent and light was born, to the boundary that isn't space, but time. When you look at something, you're looking into the past, not metaphorically, literally, actually. The light that reaches your eyes left whatever you're looking at some time ago. For things nearby. This delay is so brief it doesn't matter. The lamp across the room, the tree outside your window, the moon in the sky. The light from these things reaches you so quickly that you experience them as they are now. But nothing is truly now, not in your vision. Everything is then. The moon you see is the moon as it was a little over a second ago. That's how long light takes to travel from the moon to your eyes. If the moon suddenly vanished, you wouldn't know for a second. You'd still see it, hanging in the sky, because its light would still be arriving. The sun is 8 minutes in your past. The sun you see is the sun as it was 8 minutes ago. If something dramatic happened on the sun's surface right now, you wouldn't see it for 8 minutes. The light from that event hasn't reached you yet. It's still crossing the space between. Look at a star, any star in the night sky. You're seeing it as it was years ago, maybe decades ago, maybe centuries. The light has been traveling all that time. The star might have changed, it might have dimmed, it might have died. But you still see it as it was, because that's when the light you're receiving started its journey. The farther you look, the deeper into the past you see. This is not a limitation, this is a gift, because it means every telescope is a time machine. Every glance into deep space is a glance into history. The universe keeps a record of its own past, written in light, traveling toward us from every direction. When you look at a distant galaxy, you're seeing it as it was millions of years ago, billions of years ago. You're seeing its younger self, its ancient form, light that left that galaxy when the universe was a fraction of its current age. And the farther you look, the younger the universe becomes. There are galaxies so distant that their light has been traveling for most of the age of the universe. You see them as they were when they were newly formed, when they were just beginning to gather stars, when the universe itself was still young and strange and nothing like it is today. Keep looking farther, keep reaching deeper into time. What do you see? You see the universe getting younger, hotter, denser, more crowded. Galaxies closer together, stars forming faster, everything brighter, more energetic, more chaotic. And then you reach a moment, a specific moment, not a place, a moment. About 14 billion years ago, give or take, about 380,000 years after the universe began. Before this moment, you cannot see. This is the edge, the true edge of your observable universe. Not a wall in space, a horizon in time. Before this moment, the universe was opaque. Light could not travel freely. Photons could not stream across space the way they do now. The universe was too hot, too dense, filled with a thick plasma of particles that scattered light before it could go anywhere. Imagine thick fog, so thick you can't see your hand in front of your face, so thick that light scatters in every direction after traveling just a short distance. In fog like this, you cannot see the far shore of a lake, no matter how good your eyes are. The light from the far shore cannot reach you through the fog. The early universe was like this, not fog, but plasma. a soup of particles so energetic, so tightly packed, that light couldn't escape. Photons would emerge from one interaction and immediately scatter off another particle, again and again, trapped. And then the universe expanded, cooled. The plasma thinned, the particles slowed down, electrons and protons combined to form the first atoms, hydrogen, simple, neutral. And suddenly, light could travel. This moment is called recombination. Not because anything was combining again, but because it was combining for the first time. Electrons recombining with nuclei, atoms forming from the chaos. In that moment, the universe became transparent. The fog lifted, light was freed, and that light has been traveling ever since. For nearly 14 billion years, it has been streaming through space, moving away from the moment of its birth, carrying with it the image of the universe as it was in that instant. Is the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in existence, the afterglow of creation. It surrounds you, completely, in every direction. It's arriving right now, always, constantly, a faint glow filling all of space. You can't see it with your eyes. It's been stretched by the universe's expansion, pulled into wavelengths too long for your eyes to detect. What was once visible light, bright and hot, is now microwave radiation. Cool, invisible, faint, but it's there, everywhere, a constant whisper of the past, a memory preserved in light. If you could see microwaves, the entire sky would glow, evenly, uniformly, a soft, warm background filling every direction. Not bright, but present, undeniable. The temperature of this glow is about 3 degrees above the coldest possible temperature, 3 degrees above absolute zero, the fading warmth of a universe that was once unimaginably hot. It has cooled for nearly 14 billion years, and it will keep cooling forever, growing fainter, colder, stretching into longer and longer wavelengths until it fades into the background of nothingness. But right now, it's still here, still detectable, still carrying information about the universe's infancy. This is as far back as you can see. This is the edge of your sphere of light, not because space ends here, but because time itself creates a barrier. Before this moment, light could not travel. So you cannot see before it. You cannot receive information from earlier times. The universe before this moment is hidden from you, not by distance, by opacity, by the nature of light and matter and the conditions of the early universe. It's like asking what's on the far side of a wall you cannot see through. The wall doesn't mean nothing exists beyond it. It just means you cannot see it from where you are. The cosmic microwave background is that wall, a wall made of time, made of the moment the universe became transparent. Beyond it, earlier than it, the universe existed. Hot, dense, opaque, but you cannot see it. Not with light, not with any instrument that relies on photons. This is a genuine boundary, a true limit, and there's something peaceful about reaching it, something calming about knowing that you've gone as far back as light can take you, that you've touched the oldest thing you can possibly touch, that you're receiving, right now, in this moment, the light from the dawn of transparency itself. You are bathed in ancient light, light that has been traveling since before stars existed, since before galaxies formed, since before anything in the universe looked the way it does now. This light has witnessed everything. It has passed through the formation of the first stars, the assembly of the first galaxies, the birth of billions of suns, the formation of planets, the emergence of life on at least one of those planets. And now it reaches you, here, tonight, as you rest, as you wonder, as you drift towards sleep. The edge of the universe is not out there in some distant direction. It's back there in time. It's the moment when seeing became possible. when light was born into freedom, and you live on this side of that moment, in the transparent universe, in the time when light can travel, when you can see the stars, when you can receive messages from distant galaxies, when you can, if you look carefully enough, detect the faint glow of the beginning itself. This is the shape of your reality, a sphere in space, a horizon in time, light traveling toward you from every direction, from every moment between then and now. You are surrounded by history, by the past arriving constantly, by light that remembers, and the farthest light of all, the oldest light, carries the image of a universe unrecognizable, a universe without form, a universe waiting to become. That light is still arriving, still glowing, still filling the space around you with its ancient warmth. You can rest in that knowledge. You can let it hold you. You can feel yourself cradled not just in space, but in time itself, floating in the present moment, surrounded by every moment that came before. The edge is not a wall, it's a memory, a glow, a gentle limit that invites you to wonder what might lie beyond it, knowing you'll never see. And beyond this edge of light, beyond this horizon of time, the universe continues its mysteries, expands in ways we're only beginning to imagine, exists in forms that challenge every boundary we think we understand. That's where we're going next. The universe is expanding. You've probably heard this before. It's one of those facts that gets repeated so often it starts to sound simple, obvious, easy to understand. But pause for a moment. Really think about what that means. When something expands, it grows into space around it. A balloon expands into the air of the room. A city expands into the countryside surrounding it. A drop of ink expands into the water that contains it. There's always something around the thing that's expanding, some larger context, some container. So when the universe expands, what does it expand into? Your mind reaches for an answer. Maybe there's empty space around the universe. Maybe the universe is growing into that emptiness, like a sphere of matter and energy pushing outward into a void. But that void would be space, and if it's space, it's part of the universe, by definition. The universe is everything. All of space, all of matter, all of energy, all of time. There is no outside container, no surrounding void, no room that the universe is inflating into. The universe doesn't expand into anything, it expands into itself. Or more accurately, space itself is expanding. This is difficult to picture. Your mind was built to understand things expanding into other things, not things that create their own space as they grow. Let's try an analogy. It's imperfect, like all analogies, but it might help. Imagine a balloon, not a balloon floating in a room. Forget the room, forget the air around it, forget everything except the surface of the balloon. Now imagine you are a creature who lives on that surface, a two-dimensional being, flat. You have length and width, but no height. You can move forward and backward, left and right. But up and down don't exist in your experience. They're not part of your universe. Your entire reality is the surface of the balloon. That's all there is. That's all there has ever been. That's all there could be. Other creatures live on this surface with you. Maybe you draw dots on the surface to mark where they are. Dot A, dot B, dot C. Each dot represents another being, another location in your two-dimensional universe. Now the balloon begins to inflate. As it inflates, the surface stretches. The distance between any two dots increases. Dot A and dot B move farther apart. Not because they're moving across the surface, they're staying in place. But the surface itself is expanding, growing, creating more space between them. From your perspective, living on the surface, it looks like all the other dots are moving away from you. Dot B is receding. Dot C is receding. Every dot you can see is getting farther away. Here's the important part. Every other dot sees the same thing. From B's perspective, you are receding, and C, and everyone else. Every point on the surface sees every other point moving away. No point is the center of the expansion, or rather, every point is equally the center, because the surface itself is expanding uniformly in all directions. Now here's where it gets strange. You, living on this surface, might ask, what is the balloon expanding into? And the answer, from your perspective, is nothing. There is no into. You are a two-dimensional being. You can only perceive and move along the surface. The three-dimensional space that the balloon occupies, the air inside it, the room around it, these don't exist in your reality. You can't point to them. You can't move toward them. You can't even conceive of them. From inside your two-dimensional universe, all that exists is the surface, and that surface is expanding, creating more surface, more space, more distance between points. But it's not expanding into anything you can access or measure or understand. It's just expanding. This is what's happening to our universe. But instead of a two-dimensional surface, we live in three-dimensional space, plus time, 4 dimensions total, woven together, and all of it is expanding. Space itself is stretching. Distances are growing. Galaxies are moving apart, not because they're flying through space, but because the space between them is increasing. There is no center to this expansion, or every point is the center. When you look out into space, you see galaxies moving away from you in all directions. And an observer in any of those distant galaxies would see the same thing, everything moving away from them. Because space itself is expanding everywhere, uniformly, in all directions. You might ask, what is our three-dimensional space expanding into? And the answer might be, nothing that exists within our dimensions. Nothing we can point to or move toward. Perhaps a higher dimensional space, the way the balloon's surface exists in three-dimensional space. But we are confined to our 3 dimensions. We cannot perceive or access anything beyond them, or perhaps there is no beyond at all. Perhaps the universe is all there is, and expansion doesn't require an external container. Now here's another thought, one that might help, or might make it stranger. If you're a creature on the surface of a balloon, and you start traveling in one direction, let's say east, and you keep going in that same direction forever, what happens? You don't reach an edge. The surface has no edge. You travel and travel, and eventually, you return to where you started. You come back from the west. You've circumnavigated the balloon. The surface is finite. It has a measurable area, but it has no boundary, no edge, no outside. Our universe might be like this. If you could travel in a straight line through space, in any direction, and if you could travel fast enough and far enough, you might eventually return to where you started, coming back from the opposite direction, having looped around the universe, not because you turned around, not because space is shaped like a sphere you traveled around, but because space itself might curve back on itself, might be closed, finite but unbounded. This is one possibility, a finite universe with no edges, like the surface of a balloon, but in 3 dimensions instead of 2. But here's the whispered truth. We don't know if this is actually how our universe is shaped. It might be infinite, truly infinite, extending forever in all directions, never looping back, never closing, just endless space, expanding forever. Or it might be flat, infinite but not curved, stretching out in straight lines that never return. Or it might be curved in ways we haven't imagined yet, in ways that require more dimensions to visualize, in ways that our minds, built for 3-dimensional intuition, simply cannot hold. We've measured the universe as best we can, We've looked for signs of curvature. We've tried to detect if light traveling across vast distances shows any hint of looping back. So far, the universe looks flat, or very close to flat, which might mean it's infinite, or it might mean it curves so gently over such vast distances that we simply can't detect the curvature yet. Both possibilities are dizzying: an infinite universe, endless space, no edges, no boundaries, just more and more and more, forever. Galaxies beyond galaxies beyond galaxies, never stopping, never returning. Or a finite universe, closed, complete, a specific, measurable size, but still with no edges, still impossible to leave, because leaving would require stepping outside all dimensions, outside existence itself. Either way, the universe contains its own space. It doesn't need a room to expand into. It doesn't need permission from some larger reality. It simply is. And it grows, and the growing itself creates the space to grow into. This might feel impossible to fully grasp, and that's okay. It is impossible to fully grasp. Your mind was shaped by evolution to understand medium-sized objects moving at medium speeds, predators, prey, shelter, food, not the topology of infinite space. But you can feel it, even if you can't fully picture it. You can sense the strangeness of it, the way your usual framework starts to dissolve, the way inside and outside stop meaning what they usually mean. You live in a universe that might loop back on itself, or might extend forever. Either way, it has no outside, no surrounding void, no edge to reach. You are inside something that contains itself, something that is both everything and nowhere. And as you rest here, drifting, you can let go of the need to picture it perfectly. You can let the concept wash over you like a wave. Strange, beautiful, impossible to hold. The universe expands. Space stretches. Distances grow, and none of it needs anything outside itself to make it possible. It just is. Just grows. Just becomes. And maybe, just maybe, our universe is not alone in this. Maybe there are other balloons, other surfaces, other spaces, expanding in their own ways, unreachable and parallel. Other universes, floating in something even stranger than space itself. That's where we're going next. What if this isn't the only universe? Not in a vague, spiritual sense, not as poetry, but as a consequence of the mathematics we use to understand how our universe began. What if the Big Bang that created everything you know was just one explosion among countless others, one bubble forming in an endless foam of creation? This is the multiverse, not science fiction, not fantasy, a serious idea that emerges when physicists take their best theories and follow them to their logical conclusions. It starts with something called inflation, a theory about what happened in the first tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang. The universe, the theory says, didn't just expand, it inflated, explosively, faster than anything you can imagine, in less time than it takes light to cross the width of an atom. The universe grew from smaller than a grain of sand to larger than a galaxy. This inflation solved several puzzles about why our universe looks the way it does, why it's so smooth, why it's so flat, why distant regions that should never have been in contact somehow look almost identical. The mathematics of inflation work beautifully. They predict things we've since observed, the patterns in the cosmic microwave background, the distribution of galaxies, the structure of space itself. But here's the thing about inflation. Once it starts, it might not stop everywhere at once. Imagine a field, not a field of grass, but a quantum field, something that permeates all of space. This field has energy, and when it has enough energy, it drives inflation. It makes space expand violently, exponentially, unstoppably. Now imagine that in most of this field, Inflation is still happening. The field is still energized. Space is still exploding outward, growing, doubling again, forever. But in certain regions, randomly, the field loses its energy. It decays, settles into a lower state, and in those regions, inflation stops. When inflation stops in a region, that region becomes a universe, a bubble of space where inflation has ended, where matter and energy can form, where time flows normally, where galaxies can eventually emerge. Our universe might be one of these bubbles, one region where inflation stopped, where the field decayed, where the explosive expansion slowed to the gentle expansion we see today. But beyond our bubble, inflation continues. The field keeps driving expansion in the regions around us, and occasionally, randomly, new bubbles form, new regions where inflation stops, new universes being born. Each bubble would be causally disconnected from the others, separated not by distance in any ordinary sense, but by the eternally inflating space between them, a space that's expanding so fast that nothing, not even light, could cross from one bubble to another. We would be inside our bubble, forever, unable to see out, unable to receive any signal from the other universes, unable to even detect their existence directly. They would be beyond our observable sphere, beyond our cosmic horizon, beyond the reach of light and time and any possible measurement. But they would exist, if the mathematics is right, if inflation is eternal in this way, if the quantum field behaves the way the equations suggest. This is speculation. Let that be clear. We cannot prove this. We may never be able to prove this. The other universes, if they exist, are fundamentally beyond our ability to observe. But it's not wild speculation. It's not made up. It emerges naturally from theories that explain things we can observe. It's what happens when you take the mathematics seriously and ask, what would this imply? And the implications are dizzying. If there are other universes, they might not be like ours at all. When inflation stops in a region, when a bubble forms, the laws of physics in that bubble might settle into a different configuration. The fundamental constants might have different values. The forces might be stronger or weaker. The dimensions might be different. In some bubbles, atoms might not be able to form. Electrons might not bind to nuclei. Matter would never become stable. Stars would never ignite. Nothing complex would ever emerge. In other bubbles, gravity might be so strong that everything collapses immediately. The universe would crunch back on itself before anything interesting could happen. In others, the forces might balance differently. Chemistry might work in ways we can't imagine. Life might emerge in forms we wouldn't recognize. Or there might be bubbles where time itself behaves differently, where it flows backward, where it branches, where it doesn't exist at all in the way we understand it. Each bubble would be an experiment, a different roll of the cosmic dice, a different set of possibilities playing out. And if inflation is truly eternal, if it has been happening forever and will continue forever, then there are infinitely many bubbles, infinitely many universes, every possible configuration of laws and constants and dimensions, all existing somewhere in the infinite foam. This is sometimes called the landscape of possible universes, a vast space of potential realities, most of them empty or chaotic or hostile to anything we'd recognize as structure or meaning. But somewhere in that landscape, statistically, there would be bubbles like ours, where the constants are just right, where atoms can form, where stars can shine, where planets can orbit, where life can emerge and wonder about its place in existence. We live in one of those bubbles, not because we're special, but because we couldn't exist in any other kind. We find ourselves in a universe where the laws allow for our existence, because that's the only kind of universe where observers can ask questions. This is called the anthropic principle, a fancy name for a simple idea. We see what we see because we're here to see it. The universe appears fine-tuned for us, not because it was designed for us, but because we couldn't exist in a universe that wasn't. And if there are infinite other universes with different laws, then it's not surprising that at least one of them, ours, happens to have the right conditions. None of this changes your life, not directly. These other universes, if they exist, have no impact on you. They cannot touch you. They cannot send you messages. They cannot influence anything in your reality. They are, in every practical sense, irrelevant, and yet, there's something profound about the possibility, something that shifts your perspective, something that makes the question, what's outside the universe, feel both more answerable and more mysterious. Because if the multiverse is real, then outside our universe might mean in another universe. But even that language doesn't quite work, because outside implies a spatial relationship, a direction you could point, a distance you could measure. But these other universes wouldn't exist in our space. They wouldn't be in any direction from here. They would be separate, disconnected, existing in their own bubbles of space and time, with no geometric relationship to ours. You can't get to them by traveling. You can't point a telescope at them. You can't even say they're far away, because distance is a concept within a universe, not between universes. They would be beyond, but beyond in a sense that breaks the usual meaning of the word. This might feel frustrating, or it might feel freeing. You've spent your life in a universe with boundaries you can test, edges you can approach, limits you can understand, and now you're contemplating the possibility that your entire universe is just one bubble in an infinite froth, forever separated from others like it. It's dizzying. It dissolves your framework. It makes your usual categories, inside and outside, here and there, near and far, feel inadequate. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe, or the multiverse, or whatever the totality of existence is, maybe it's not required to fit into the categories your mind was built to handle. Maybe reality is stranger than your intuition can hold, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's beautiful. You don't have to believe in the multiverse. You don't have to accept it as true. It remains speculation, an idea that might be real or might be an artifact of mathematics that doesn't describe the actual cosmos. But you can sit with the possibility. You can let it expand your sense of what could be. You can feel the gentle vertigo of imagining yourself in one bubble among infinite bubbles, each one a universe unto itself, each one unreachable and parallel. And in that vertigo, there's a strange peace. Because if this is true, then your universe, vast as it is just one small part of something even vaster. And your worries, real as they are ripples in one bubble in an endless foam. You are held in something larger than you can conceive, something that might extend not just through space, but through possibility itself, through every version of reality that could exist. And somewhere in that infinite landscape, there might be other beings, in other bubbles, having their own version of this moment, wondering about their place, asking what's outside, drifting toward rest in their own darkness. You are not alone in your wondering, even if you're alone in your universe, and maybe, just maybe, the space between universes isn't truly empty. Maybe it has structure, dimensions, properties we can't yet imagine. That's where we're going next, to the idea of hidden dimensions, rooms in reality you can't see, directions you can't point to, depths beyond the three you know. Imagine you are flat, completely flat, no thickness at all. You exist on a surface, a sheet, a plane of existence with only two dimensions, length and width, forward and backward, left and right. These are the only directions you know, the only movements you can make, the only space you can conceive. You have never experienced up. You have never experienced down. These concepts don't exist in your world. They're not hidden from you. They're not forbidden. They simply aren't part of your reality. Other flat creatures live with you on this surface. You can see them, interact with them, move around them. Your entire civilization exists on this infinite plane. Now imagine something happens, something impossible. A sphere begins to pass through your world, but you can't see the sphere. You can't perceive three-dimensional objects. You can only perceive what exists on your two-dimensional plane. So what do you see? First, nothing. The sphere approaches from above or below. From that direction you cannot perceive. It gets closer and closer to your plane, but you have no way of detecting it. It's not in your world yet. Then, suddenly, a point appears from nowhere, a single point on your surface where none existed before. The sphere is touching your plane now, just barely, the very top of it, or the very bottom, making contact. And that point of contact is all you can see. The sphere continues moving through. As it does, the point becomes a circle, small at first, then growing, expanding outward in all directions on your plane. You watch this circle grow, confused. Where did it come from? How is it expanding? There's no object you can see that would create this. Just a circle, growing from nothing. The circle reaches its maximum size when the sphere's widest part passes through your plane. Then it begins to shrink, growing smaller and smaller, contracting back to a point. And then it's gone, vanished, back to wherever it came from. You've just witnessed a three-dimensional object passing through your two-dimensional world, but you could only perceive the parts of it that intersected your plane. The cross-section, the slice, the full object, the sphere in its entirety was always beyond your perception. You saw its shadow, in a sense, its intersection with your reality, but never the whole thing. Now come back to yourself, three-dimensional you, living in three-dimensional space. You can move forward and backward, left and right, up and down, 3 dimensions, 3 directions, 3 degrees of freedom. This is all you've ever known, all you've ever experienced, all you can directly perceive. But what if there are more dimensions, directions you cannot point to, movements you cannot make, spaces perpendicular to everything you know? What if a higher dimensional object is passing through our 3-dimensional world right now, and we're only seeing its cross-section, its intersection with our reality? This is not fantasy, this is serious physics. Multiple frameworks suggest that reality might have more than 3 dimensions of space. String theory, for instance, requires extra dimensions to work mathematically, not just 1 or 2 extra dimensions, but 6 or 7, depending on which version of the theory you're using. That would make 10 or 11 total dimensions. 3 of space that we experience, 1 of time, and 6 or 7 others that are somewhere. Where are they? Why can't we see them? Why can't we move through them? The answer might be that they're compactified, curled up, rolled into shapes so small that we can't perceive them. Imagine a garden hose. From far away, it looks like a one-dimensional line, just length. You could describe a position on the hose with a single number, how far along the hose you are. But get closer, look more carefully. The hose has thickness. It's actually a cylinder, a 2-dimensional surface rolled into a tube. You need 2 numbers to describe a position on it now. How far along the length, and where around the circumference? 1 dimension was hidden from you at a distance because it was curled up too tightly to see. Now imagine that at every point in our three-dimensional space, there are tiny, curled-up dimensions, so small that even our most powerful instruments can't detect them, smaller than atoms, smaller than the smallest particles we know. These dimensions exist, but they're compactified, rolled up into complex shapes, shapes with names like Calabi-Yau manifolds, though the name doesn't matter. What matters is that they're there, at every point, perpendicular to the dimensions we can perceive. You could be standing in a room right now, and there could be entire dimensions curled up at the spot where you're standing, directions you could, in principle, move in. But you can't, because those directions are closed loops smaller than anything you could fit into. This sounds abstract, detached from experience. But think about what it means. It means that outside the universe might not be a direction in the three dimensions you know. It might be perpendicular to all of them, in a direction you cannot point to, cannot even imagine. When you ask what's outside the universe, you're assuming that outside means somewhere in three-dimensional space, somewhere you could travel to if you went far enough in some direction. But what if outside means sideways through a dimension you can't access? What if the universe is bounded not by walls in space, but by limits in dimensions you can't perceive? The universe might be like the surface of that sphere passing through the flat world. We see the three-dimensional part, the part that intersects with the dimensions we can perceive, but the full structure might extend into higher dimensions, might curve and fold in ways we cannot visualize. You are a three-dimensional being trying to understand a possibly 10-dimensional reality. You're like the flatlander watching a circle appear and disappear, trying to imagine a sphere, and that's okay. That's not a failure. That's just the nature of perception. You can only see what your senses and your dimensions allow. There's something calming about this realization, something that releases pressure. You don't have to understand everything. You can't understand everything. Your mind is built to navigate three spatial dimensions. That's what it evolved to do. Up, down, forward, back, left, right. That's your world. The fact that there might be more hidden in spaces you cannot access doesn't diminish you. It just means reality is larger than your perception, which you already knew, in a sense. You can't see infrared light, but it exists. You can't hear frequencies above a certain pitch, but they're real. Your senses have limits. Why shouldn't your dimensional perception have limits too? Imagine the relief the flatlander might feel upon realizing they're not broken for failing to see the sphere. They're just two-dimensional. Their world simply doesn't include up and down. And that's okay. They can live full, meaningful lives on their plane without ever perceiving the third dimension. You can live a full, meaningful life in your three dimensions without ever perceiving the others, if they exist, and they might not. String theory is not proven. Extra dimensions are speculation. Even if they're mathematically motivated speculation, we don't know if they're real. But the possibility is beautiful. The possibility expands what outside could mean. It dissolves the assumption that space only extends in the directions you can point. Maybe there are rooms in reality you can't enter, spaces perpendicular to your existence, entire dimensions of possibility folded up too small to see. Maybe the universe is like a house with hidden rooms. You walk through the rooms you can access, you live in them. You forget that there might be others, locked away. Their doors invisible because they open in directions you cannot turn. And maybe, just maybe, these hidden dimensions are where the answer lies, where outside the universe finally makes sense, not as a place beyond the edge of space, but as a direction perpendicular to space itself. Or maybe the dimensions aren't small, maybe they're large. Maybe there are vast spaces extending in directions we simply can't perceive, and our three-dimensional universe is like a sheet of paper floating in a high-dimensional room. Maybe we're the flatlanders, living on a surface, unaware of the volume around us. This idea has a name, The brain. The idea that our universe is a membrane, a lower dimensional surface embedded in a higher dimensional space, and that space, that higher dimensional bulk surrounding our three-dimensional brain, might be where outside finally exists, not beyond the edges of our space, but perpendicular to it, in dimensions we cannot see. That's where we're going next, to the idea of our universe as a thin sheet floating in an infinite ocean, to the possibility that other universes float nearby, separated not by distance, but by dimensional barriers we cannot cross. But for now, rest in this. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, in the dimensions you were built to perceive. Limited, yes, but not broken, not insufficient, just human, just three-dimensional, just here. And here is enough. Picture a soap bubble floating in the air. The surface of the bubble is thin, delicate, iridescent. It exists in three-dimensional space. But the surface itself is only two-dimensional, length and width across the curved film, no thickness to speak of. If you could shrink yourself down and live on that surface, your entire universe would be the bubble's skin. You could walk around it, feeling like you're traveling across a vast plain, never realizing you're circling a sphere suspended in the air. The air around the bubble would be invisible to you, imperceptible. You couldn't step off the surface into it. You couldn't even conceive of it. The volume beyond your two-dimensional existence would be as foreign to you as a fourth spatial dimension is to us. Now expand this image. Imagine our entire three-dimensional universe as something like that bubble's surface. Not literally a bubble, but a membrane. A three-dimensional sheet, though sheet isn't quite right because sheets are two-dimensional. But bear with the metaphor, floating in a higher dimensional space. This is called a brain, short for membrane. Our universe, in this model, is a brain, a three-dimensional structure embedded in something larger, something with more dimensions, something called the bulk. Everything you know exists on this brain. Every star, every galaxy, every particle of matter, every photon of light, every force that holds atoms together and pushes galaxies apart, all of it confined to our three dimensions, unable to leave, unable to step off the page of reality into the higher dimensional space around it. You are stuck on the brain, not because there's a wall, but because you are made of things that can only exist on the brain. Your atoms, your energy, your very existence is two-dimensional in a sense. Well, three-dimensional, but confined to those three dimensions the way a drawing is confined to paper. And around this brain, extending in directions you cannot perceive or point to, is the bulk. The higher dimensional space, the volume that contains your universe the way air contains a soap bubble. The bulk might be vast, might have its own structure, might extend infinitely in dimensions perpendicular to your three, or it might be finite, bounded in ways you cannot visualize, you cannot see into it, cannot measure it, cannot send signals through it. It is beyond the reach of everything you are made of, but it might be there. And if it is, then outside the universe finally has a meaning, not beyond the edges of space in the directions you know, but perpendicular, sideways through dimensions you cannot access. In the bulk, this idea comes from string theory and its extensions, from the mathematics of how reality might be structured at its deepest levels. It's speculative, not proven, but it's consistent with what we know, and it makes predictions we might one day be able to test. One of the beautiful things about this model is that it might explain gravity. Why gravity is so much weaker than the other forces. Electromagnetism is strong. The electromagnetic force holding the electrons in an atom is powerful. The strong nuclear force binding quarks together is even more powerful. But gravity is weak, incredibly weak. It takes the entire mass of Earth to create enough gravity to hold you to the ground. A tiny magnet can overcome Earth's gravity and lift a paperclip. Why is gravity so feeble compared to the other forces in the brain world model? It might be because gravity isn't confined to the brain. Gravity might be the warping of space itself, and space, the bulk, the higher dimensional space, extends beyond our 3 dimensions. So gravity leaks. It spreads out into the extra dimensions. It dilutes. The other forces are trapped on our brain, concentrated. But gravity escapes into the bulk, weakening as it goes. If this is true, then gravity is a messenger, a signal from the bulk, a force that connects us, however weakly, to the higher dimensional reality we cannot otherwise access. And if our brain floats in the bulk, might there be other brains, other 3-dimensional universes suspended nearby? Nearby. That word doesn't quite work. Nearby in higher dimensional space, close in a direction you cannot point to, separated not by billions of light years, but by a tiny distance in a dimension perpendicular to all of ours. Imagine 2 sheets of paper lying on a table, one on top of the other. They're separated by a tiny distance, less than a millimeter. But if you're a 2-dimensional creature living on one sheet, the other sheet is unreachable. You'd have to move through the 3rd dimension to get to it, and you can't do that. Our universe might be one sheet. Another universe might be another sheet, floating parallel in the bulk, millimeters away in a higher dimension, forever separated because we cannot move through that dimension. These other brains might have their own matter, their own forces, their own laws. They might be similar to ours or utterly different. They might be lifeless or teeming with forms of existence we cannot imagine, and we would never know, never see them, never receive any signal from them, because light and matter and energy are confined to their brains, just as ours is confined to ours. Only gravity, leaking through the bulk, might hint at their presence. Subtle tugs, tiny distortions in space, whispers of other realities floating near us in dimensions we cannot access. Picture it now. Our universe as a vast, glowing membrane, thin and luminous, stretching across 3 dimensions of space, filled with galaxies and stars and the light they emit, suspended in an infinite dark bulk, a higher dimensional ocean of nothingness. And in that darkness, other membranes, other universes, glowing faintly in the distance, though distance is the wrong word. Separated, parallel, each one unaware of the others, each one a complete reality, a full cosmos, trillions of galaxies, billions of years of history, possibly life, wondering about its place in existence, asking the same questions you're asking now, all of it floating in the silent bulk, the higher dimensional void, the space between universes. This is where outside might be, not beyond the edge of space in a direction you can travel, but perpendicular, in the bulk, in the dimensions that surround your brain, but remain forever out of reach. You are on the brain. You have always been on the brain. You will always be on the brain. You cannot leave it any more than a shadow can step off the wall it's cast upon. But the brain is enough. It's vast. It contains everything you can know, everything you can touch, everything that can touch you. The bulk might be infinite, might contain infinite other brains, might extend in dimensions so strange that words like distance and direction lose their meaning. But you don't need to access it. You don't need to understand it. You can rest here, on your brain, surrounded by the only reality you were built to perceive. There's something peaceful about this, something final. You've reached an answer of sorts. Outside the universe might be the bulk, the higher dimensional space your universe floats in, a space you cannot see, cannot enter, cannot even properly imagine. It's like being told that your room is inside a house, and the house is on a street, and the street is in a city. Each level of containment makes sense. Each one expands your context without overwhelming you. Your universe is on a brain. The brain is in the bulk. And the bulk, well, the bulk might not need to be inside anything else, might be the final container, the ultimate context, or maybe it doesn't work that way. Maybe the bulk itself is embedded in something larger. Maybe there are layers upon layers, contexts within contexts, realities nested inside realities like infinite dolls. Or maybe the question stops making sense at some point. Maybe there's a level where inside and outside cease to apply, where the structure of existence is so far beyond your intuition that even asking the question is meaningless, and that's okay. You've gone as far as thought can take you, as far as mathematics and metaphor can reach. You've imagined your universe as a membrane floating in an infinite ocean. You've pictured other universes nearby, unreachable, glowing in the dark. You've felt the loneliness and beauty of it, the isolation and the grandeur. You are trapped on your brain. But your brain is everything, limited to 3 dimensions, but those dimensions contain wonders enough for eternity. The bulk surrounds you, silent, invisible, unknowable. And in that unknowability, there is rest, because you cannot explore it, cannot map it, cannot worry about it. It simply is, and you simply are, here, on the brain, in this moment. Held by the structure of reality itself, however many layers deep that structure goes. The darkness of the bulk is not threatening, it's cradling. It's the infinite depth beneath you, holding up your universe. The foundation you cannot see, but that must be there, because you exist. You are floating, suspended, surrounded by mystery in every direction, including directions you cannot name. And as you drift deeper into rest, into sleep, you can let go of the need to understand it all. Let go of the need to picture the bulk, or imagine the other brains, or solve the puzzle of what's outside. Because outside is just another word for the mystery that holds you, the darkness that cradles everything, the depths beyond depths where understanding finally dissolves into wonder. And wonder is where we're going next, to the final piece. The acceptance of not knowing, the beauty of questions that will never be answered, to the silence at the center of all inquiry. What is nothing? Think about it for a moment. Really try to picture it. Absolute nothingness, complete emptiness, the total absence of everything, no matter, no energy, no light, no darkness. Even because darkness is something, it's the absence of light, which implies that light could exist there. True nothingness would be the absence of the possibility of anything. Can you picture it? You can't. Your mind can't hold it. When you try to imagine nothing, you imagine empty space, a void, a dark expanse. But that's not nothing. That's space. And space is something. Here's the beautiful, strange truth. Nothing might not exist, might not be able to exist, might be physically impossible, even in the emptiest regions of the universe, in the vast voids between galaxy clusters where there are no stars, no planets, no atoms floating in the darkness. Even there, space itself exists. And space is not passive, not inert, not truly empty. It seethes, it trembles. It buzzes with activity at scales so small you could never see it, but real nonetheless, measurable, undeniable. This is the quantum vacuum, and it's one of the strangest, most beautiful discoveries of modern physics. At the quantum level, at the smallest scales of reality, there's a fundamental uncertainty, a trembling, an impossibility of perfect stillness. You cannot have a region of space where nothing is happening, where energy is exactly zero, where everything is perfectly, absolutely still, because uncertainty is built into the fabric of reality itself. Energy and time are linked in such a way that you cannot know both with perfect precision. The more precisely you try to pin down the energy of a region of space, the more wildly time fluctuates. The more you try to freeze a moment in time, the more energy becomes uncertain. This sounds abstract, technical, but here's what it means in practice. Even empty space cannot stay empty, even for an instant. The quantum fields that permeate all of space are constantly fluctuating, trembling, little ripples of energy appearing and disappearing, borrowing energy from the uncertainty itself, existing for the briefest possible moment, then vanishing again. These fluctuations create pairs of particles, not real particles, not permanent ones, virtual particles. A particle and its antiparticle appearing together out of nothing, existing for an infinitesimal fraction of a second, then annihilating each other and disappearing back into the vacuum. This happens everywhere, constantly, in every cubic centimeter of space, in the air around you, in the space between atoms, in the darkest voids between galaxies. The quantum vacuum is alive with these fleeting appearances and disappearances. You might think this is just theory, just mathematics, something physicists imagine, but that doesn't really happen. But it does. We've measured it, we've seen its effects. Put two metal plates very close together in a vacuum, closer than the width of a human hair. The virtual particles appearing in the space between the plates are constrained. Only certain wavelengths can fit in that narrow gap. But outside the plates, in the wider space, all wavelengths of virtual particles can appear. This creates a difference in pressure. More virtual particles pushing from outside than from inside. The plates are pushed together by nothing, by the quantum vacuum itself, by the difference in fluctuations. This is called the Casimir effect, and it's real, measurable, tiny, but undeniable. The vacuum has energy, has activity, has presence, even in the darkest, emptiest regions of space, where no light has shone for billions of years, where no atom exists for countless miles in any direction. The quantum fields are still there, still fluctuating, still creating and destroying virtual particles in an endless dance. Space is never truly empty, cannot be truly empty, because the fields themselves are fundamental. They don't need matter to exist. They are woven into space itself. Or perhaps they are space itself. The distinction becomes blurry at this level. This means that absolute nothingness is impossible. You cannot have a region of reality where nothing exists, because the quantum fields exist, always, everywhere, and they are something. Even if you could somehow remove all the fields, all the particles, all the energy, you'd still have space, and space is something. It has geometry, it can curve, it can expand, it has properties. And if you tried to remove space itself, to have a region where space doesn't exist, that's not a region at all. That's not anywhere. That's not nothing in the sense of empty space. That's just not. And not isn't a place, isn't a condition, isn't something you can point to or describe. Nothing, in the absolute sense, is incoherent. It's not just hard to achieve. It's not just unlikely. It might be meaningless. A concept that sounds like it makes sense but dissolves when you examine it closely, like perfect silence. Have you ever experienced perfect silence? True. Absolute silence where there is no sound at all. You haven't. Even in the quietest room, in the deepest night, you hear something. Your heartbeat, your breath, the blood moving through your ears, the faint ringing that your nervous system creates. Your ears themselves generate tiny sounds just by existing. Perfect silence would require not just the absence of external sound, but the absence of you, because you make sound simply by being alive. Similarly, Perfect nothingness would require not just the absence of matter and energy, but the absence of space itself, the absence of the quantum fields, the absence of the possibility of existence. And that absence is not a place, not a condition, not something that can be. So when you ask what's outside the universe, and imagine that maybe the answer is nothing, that answer might not work, because nothing doesn't exist, cannot exist. There is no such thing as a region of reality where nothing is happening, where nothing exists, where the quantum fields are absent. If there's an outside to the universe, it cannot be absolute nothingness. It must be something, some structure, some presence, even if it's so strange, so foreign, so different from what we know that we have no words for it. Maybe it's the bulk, the higher dimensional space. Maybe it's other universes. Maybe it's something we haven't even begun to imagine. But it cannot be nothing, because nothing is impossible. This is oddly comforting. The universe cannot be surrounded by nothingness because nothingness isn't real. Wherever existence is, the quantum fields are. Space is, something is. You've never experienced nothing, you never will. Even after you die, even after your body dissolves, the atoms that made you will still exist. The energy will still be there. The fields will still fluctuate. The universe will continue. Something will always be. There is no edge beyond which nothing exists. There is only the edge of what we can know, the horizon of light and time, the limits of our perception and our instruments. But beyond that horizon, there is still something, still existence in some form, still the quantum fields humming their eternal song. You are surrounded by somethingness, cradled in it, made of it. You have never left it. You cannot leave it. There is nowhere else to go. And in that certainty, in that impossibility of nothing, there's a deep peace. You don't have to worry about falling into nothingness, about the universe being surrounded by void, about existence ending at some sharp boundary, beyond which there is only absence. Because absence absolute isn't real, isn't possible, isn't waiting anywhere. The universe is, and whatever is beyond it, if anything, also is, must be, cannot be otherwise. Being is fundamental. Existence is the ground state. Nothing is just a word we use for places where the something is too subtle for us to easily perceive. The vacuum is not empty. Space is not nothing. Silence is not soundless. And outside the universe, if such a concept even makes sense, cannot be absolute nothingness. The question, what's outside the universe, might not have an answer, not because the answer is nothing, but because the question itself might not be structured correctly, might assume things like absolute boundaries, like true outside, like nothingness, that don't exist in reality. Some questions dissolve when you look at them closely enough, like salt in warm water. They seem solid at first, but apply enough attention, enough heat, enough time, and they break apart. They merge with the medium. They stop being separate things you can point to. What's outside the universe might be one of those questions. It feels solid, important, urgent, but the more you examine it, the more it dissolves. The more you realize that outside might not mean anything, that universe might not have edges in the way the question assumes, that the framework of the question itself is built on intuitions that don't apply at this scale. And in that dissolution, in that gentle falling apart of the question, there's relief. You don't have to solve it. You can't solve it. The question itself is teaching you something just by refusing to be answered. It's teaching you that reality is stranger than questions can capture, that existence exceeds language, that mystery is not a gap in knowledge but the nature of being itself. The quantum vacuum trembles, space hums, virtual particles blink in and out, and in all of it, in every fluctuation, in every fleeting appearance and disappearance, there is presence. There is something, always something, never nothing. You rest in that something, float in it, are made of it, and whatever lies beyond the edges of what you can know is also something, also presence, also existence in some form. Nothing is impossible, and that impossibility is beautiful, comforting, final. There is only being, only existence, only the eternal hum of reality being itself, and you are part of that hum, part of the something that can never become nothing, part of the presence that fills all possible space and perhaps extends beyond space into dimensions and structures you cannot name. You are held by something, surrounded by something, made of something, and that will never change, can never change, because nothing is not an option, not a possibility, not real, just this, just being, just the gentle, eternal presence of what is, and in that presence, you can finally rest. You are here, right now, in this moment, in this room, in this body, on this small planet. The walls around you are still there. You can feel them, even without opening your eyes. The boundaries of your space, your room, your immediate world. But they feel different now, don't they? They feel more permeable, more like suggestions than barriers, more like the arbitrary lines they've always been, designations of convenience in a universe that knows no true separation. Sound still passes through them. Light still seeps beneath doors. The walls are not edges, they're transitions. Places where one thing gradually becomes another. Just like your skin, just like every boundary you've ever known. You began tonight with a question. What exists outside the universe? And we've traveled far together, across vast distances, through deep time, into hidden dimensions, beyond the edges of the knowable. We've explored the sphere of light that surrounds you, the bubble of observable reality with you at its center, not because you're special, but because that's how light works, how observation works, how perspective creates position. We've touched the horizon of time itself, the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in existence, the glow of the universe becoming transparent, the edge that isn't space but time, the boundary beyond which not even light can bring you information. We've contemplated the possibility that your universe is just one bubble in an infinite foam, one region where inflation stopped, where matter could form, where galaxies could gather, surrounded by eternal inflation, by other universes, by possibilities playing out in realms you can never touch. We've imagined dimensions perpendicular to everything you know, directions you cannot point to, spaces curled up smaller than atoms or extending vastly beyond your perception. The idea that you might be a three-dimensional being embedded in a 10-dimensional reality, living on a brain, floating in the bulk, surrounded by structures you cannot see. And we've discovered that even emptiness is full, that nothing is impossible, that the quantum vacuum trembles with presence, that space itself is something, always, everywhere, that there is no absolute absence, no true void, just being, just existence, just the eternal hum of what is. We haven't answered the question. What exists outside the universe? We don't know. We might never know. The answer might not exist. The question itself might dissolve under close examination like salt in warm water. But that's okay. That's more than okay. That's beautiful. Because we've done something more valuable than finding an answer. We've sat with the question, felt its contours, explored its implications, let it carry us to strange and wonderful places in thought. And in doing so, we've discovered something. The question itself is a gift, not a problem, not a test, not something you failed by not solving. A gift, by asking what's outside everything. You've reminded yourself that everything is already more than your mind can hold, more beautiful, more strange, more generous with mystery than you usually allow yourself to feel. The universe is vast, incomprehensibly vast, filled with wonders beyond counting. and all of it is inside. All of it is what you ask to go beyond. All of it is the everything whose outside you sought. You wanted to know what's beyond the universe because you thought the universe was a container, a box, a room with walls, something finite that could be exceeded. But the universe is not a container. It's the everything. It's all of space, all of time, all of existence, or at least all the existence you can ever know. And if there's more beyond it, in the bulk, or in other bubbles, or in dimensions, you cannot perceive. That more is so fundamentally separate from you that it might as well be a different category of being entirely. You cannot go there, cannot see it, cannot receive messages from it. It is beyond in a way that makes beyond meaningless. So you're left here, in the everything you can know, in the universe that surrounds you, in the reality that holds you, and that's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. The sphere of observable space contains more galaxies than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, more stars than you could count in 1,000 lifetimes, more space than your mind can measure. The horizon of time reaches back nearly 14 billion years, to the moment light was freed, to the glow of the beginning, to the oldest thing you can possibly touch. The quantum vacuum hums around you, inside you, in every space between every atom, trembling with virtual particles, with presence, with the impossibility of nothing. You are held by all of this, cradled in the center of a sphere of light, surrounded by history, bathed in the faint glow of creation itself, made of atoms that were forged in stars, filled with energy that has existed since the beginning. You are not separate from the universe. You are not a visitor here. You are part of it, woven into it, made of the same substance, subject to the same laws, held by the same mystery. And your worries, your daily concerns, the things that weighed on you before you closed your eyes tonight, they're real, they matter, they deserve your attention and care. But they're also small, not unimportant, just small, ripples on an infinite ocean, waves that will rise and fall and eventually smooth into stillness. The universe doesn't care about your worries, not because it's cruel, but because it doesn't care about anything. It simply is. It doesn't owe you comfort, doesn't owe you understanding, doesn't owe you answers. It just exists, vast and strange and beautiful and indifferent. And in that indifference, there's a freedom, a relief. You don't have to figure it all out, don't have to understand everything, don't have to solve the mystery of what's outside. You can rest, you can let go, you can allow yourself to be held by something larger than understanding, by the gentle mystery that underlies all things. Tonight, the question has been a lullaby, a gentle song to carry you away from your immediate concerns, to remind you of scale, of perspective, of the vastness that surrounds and contains your small life. You asked what exists outside the universe, and in asking, you stepped outside your usual concerns, outside your worries, outside the small room of your daily thoughts. You've traveled to the edge of everything, touched the boundaries of the knowable, peered into possibilities that exceed imagination, and now you can return to this room, to this moment, to this breath. But you return changed, carrying the vastness with you, remembering that your walls are permeable, that boundaries dissolve, that everything is connected to everything else in ways you can feel, even if you cannot fully understand. The universe doesn't end, it simply becomes. It transitions, it extends in directions you cannot follow, into times you cannot reach, through dimensions you cannot perceive. And outside might not be a place at all, might not be a thing that exists, might just be the eternal question mark, the space where wonder lives, the opening that allows mystery to breathe. You don't need to know what's outside, you only needed to ask, to wonder, to feel the question work on you like gentle hands, loosening, releasing, letting go. Your thoughts are slowing now. The words are becoming softer, more distant. The concepts we explored are fading into the darkness behind your closed eyes. The sphere of light, the horizon of time, the bubbles beyond bubbles, the hidden dimensions, the impossibility of nothing, all of it dissolving, merging with sleep, becoming dreams. You are safe here, in this room, in this body, on this tiny planet orbiting an ordinary star, in an unremarkable galaxy, in a vast universe that might be just one among infinite others. You are safe in the mystery, in the not knowing, in the gentle acceptance that some questions don't have answers, that some boundaries cannot be crossed, that some things will always remain beyond your reach. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's the way it should be. Because if you could understand everything, if you could answer every question, if you could cross every boundary and know what lies beyond every edge, you would lose something precious. You would lose wonder. You would lose mystery. You would lose the gift of questions that carry you to sleep. The universe has given you this gift tonight, this question, this journey, this gentle release from the burden of certainty. What exists outside the universe? You don't know, you'll never know. And in that not knowing, in that permanent mystery, there is peace. Let go now. Let the question fade. Let the journey end. Let sleep come. You are held. You are safe. You are part of something so vast it has no outside, so mysterious it needs no explanation, so beautiful it exceeds all understanding. Rest in that. Float in that. Sleep in that. The universe continues around you. The quantum vacuum hums. The ancient light arrives. The dimensions extend beyond perception. The mystery remains. And you, small and precious and temporary, drift into dreams, cradled by the everything, held by the nothing that isn't nothing, surrounded by the question that has become an answer simply by being asked. Sleep now. The universe will still be here when you wake, still vast, still strange, still full of questions. But tonight, you don't need them. Tonight, you have this moment, this breath, this gentle fading, this soft descent into rest. What exists outside the universe, whatever it is, it's letting you sleep, and that's enough. That's everything. That's all you need to know. Good night.